Hey there, health seekers. Are you the person who's doing most of the cooking in your household? If so, this might be a time when your weight loss and health goals are going off the rails. And I have some information that I think is going to help. So here's the scenario, right? It's dinner time, you're hungry, you're stressed, you're tired, everybody wants dinner on the table, and you're preparing food and you're grazing in the kitchen. And you're probably not even aware of it, but by the time you sit down to eat dinner, you've had a small meal. And you go ahead and eat dinner anyway because this is like the reward, right? This is what you've been working for, and you want to have this time to relax and eat. But there's usually some guilt associated with this because you're really not hungry at this point, so you don't enjoy it. What's going on here? Well, it's not a lack of willpower. It's a habit. And you might be thinking, what? How is that possible? I never set out to create a habit where I eat when I'm preparing food. Well, that's not really how habits get created. They're done very automatically. And the information that I'm going to share with you about this comes largely from a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. This is an absolutely phenomenal book. I recommend it. I first listened to it as an audiobook and I loved it so much that I bought the hard copy of it. And Clear gives a lot of credit to Charles Duhigg, who wrote another wonderful book called The Power of Habit. But he actually says that the concepts in his book spring off of concepts that, that Duhigg established and talked about. So habits are created when a behavior follows a predictable path and gets a predictable reward. And there's 4 steps to a habit, and I call these the habit path. There's a cue, a craving, a response, and a reward. So let's take a look at that scenario of us being in the kitchen and making dinner. The cue is I've come into the kitchen, I'm making dinner, I'm tired, and I'm stressed. And the craving is that I want relief from this feeling. And so my response is I start putting some food in my mouth, and the reward is I feel better. Now, I'm guessing that you're not consciously going through that when you're preparing food now, because this habit was probably created a long time ago. At some point, you were in the kitchen, you were cooking, and you were having your feelings that you were feeling, and you put food in your mouth and you felt better, and your brain recognized that. And that started to form that habit. And then at some point, that behavior was repeated. That habit path was a path that you went down again. And now it's so automatic that you don't even think about it. It's become a well-worn path for you. In fact, it may be so well-worn that the simple act of walking into your kitchen makes you want to eat. Do you find that this happens to you? I've certainly been there. You walk in the kitchen and all of a sudden you're like, I'm getting food. Why am I getting food? It's not time to eat. I'm not hungry, but here I am. So how do we break this habit? We have to outsmart our brains and create a new path. The good news is that the brain is really flexible and you can do this. All right, so we're gonna go through those steps again, but changing it to be a different path with a different result. So the cue is still gonna be in your kitchen preparing food. We really can't get away from that one unless you do takeout for all your meals. Then maybe you have some different issues that we'll talk about in another video. But let's assume that the cue is that you're in your kitchen and you're preparing food. So I'm going to ask you to change something about that scenario to take you out of the path and take you out of being on automatic pilot and let your brain know this is something different. I'm setting a new path here, okay? So maybe it could be that if you always watch TV or you have the news on while you're making dinner, turn it off. I'm going to ask you to be the detective here and examine what things just are automatically happening when you're in the kitchen preparing food that you don't even think about anymore, and switch those up, because that's going to get your brain back in the game and help you to set a new pattern. Maybe you always have a glass of wine at your side when you're preparing dinner, okay? I'm going to ask you to change that up. Maybe set that wine aside and have it at a different time of day. This would be a great time to work in your 16 ounces of water if you're not doing that already, but we know we want to have those 16 ounces before a meal, right? So change something about that environment. Even a great one is to change where you stand. Like if you have a kitchen island and that's where you always do all your chopping, go around to the other side of the island to prep your food. That might feel a little weird, but it's going to tell your brain this is new and it's going to keep you off that old path. Okay, your response before was to eat. Here I want to share with you a quote from James Clear's book. He says, "It is easier to associate a new habit with a new context than to build a new habit in the face of competing cues." And we want to build a new habit, so we don't want those competing cues. And the competing cues before were, I'm in the kitchen and I want stress relief, I want to eat, right? So we've got to get eating as a possibility out of the kitchen. Clear talks about this a lot in his book. He talks about the efficacy of having different locations for different functions. And I think that you'll see how much sense this makes if you think about the analogy of how difficult it is when you're on your computer trying to get work done and you have a lot of tabs open. And all of a sudden you see like, oh, a notification, something happened on social media. And all of a sudden you've drifted over there, right? And you're not doing your work anymore. So removing eating as an activity that you do in the kitchen and assigning it to a separate location where that's what you do in that location and you only do it in that location is going to help you with this goal. So what about when you mess up? Because this is a pattern that's been ingrained maybe for years now. And odds are, you're not going to be able to be mindful about this every single time while you're trying to create this new path. First thing I want you to do is don't beat yourself up. That's not going to be helpful, okay? Notice what's going on, and you want to bring awareness back. You want to rein your mind in and tell your brain, oh, we're not going down that path. We're on this different path. And I'd like you to even say out loud something that you have decided you're going to say. Maybe something like, this is not serving me. I eat my meals in the dining room. My kitchen is for food preparation. Okay? And then just move on and continue, mindfully preparing your food in the kitchen, getting ready to eat your meal. All right? Then we're at the last step, the reward. Your reward before was the grazing. It seemed like a reward, but it was really against your ultimate goals. So our new reward is getting to eat the meal. Now, if you had never had this issue around food, I would say that reward might be enough. But for those of us who have struggled with something like this, I want you to up the ante on your reward. You're going to do something that makes the meal more special. And I have been hearing this dieting advice for years, and I never understood it. And it never really worked for me without having the context of habits and understanding this habit path. Now, if we add a reward only when we have followed the path that we want to follow, we are cementing that new pathway in our brain. So whatever it is that's going to make the meal special for you, maybe it's serving it on your grandmother's beautiful plates, or you have a favorite candle that you only light when you have followed the path that you want to follow. In other words, you didn't graze while you were eating. For me, there's music that I love to listen to, and I only let myself listen to it. This particular music, I only let myself listen to it when I have mindfully prepared my meal in my kitchen and I'm sitting down still hungry and ready to eat my meal in my dining room. And at that point I would say, Alexa, shuffle songs by the Piano Guys.
Shuffling songs by the Piano Guys on Amazon Music.
And that really feels like a reward to me. Okay? I hope this helps you to hack your habits to reach your health and weight loss goals. If you'd like to talk to me about more tweaks and habits that you can introduce into your life to really get moving toward those goals, I'd love to do that. There's a link to my calendar in the comments below. You can have a free 30-minute consultation with me, and I would really enjoy connecting with you. I hope that helps. Have a great day, and here's to your health.